I do want to introduce to you, you know, I said that we need the administration, we need the council, and we need advocacy. And the advocacy group that has worked, at least in my experience, I'm not prejudiced or anything, but that has worked very closely with the administration and MOPD and the council is the group called PASS, which is Pedestrians for Accessible and Safe Streets. We are a coalition of some 21, I believe, organizations. We have National Federation of the Blind and the American Council of the Blind working together, thank you very much, on these issues, as well as a number of agencies in New York City. On our steering committee, we have various advocates. We have two fabulous orientation and mobility instructors who work with us to really work closely and professionally and smartly with the Department of Transportation and the City Council. I wanted you to have a couple of minutes to hear from one of the members of our steering committee, who is Mr. Ken Stewart, who Councilmember Brewer referenced. He's been at this accessible pedestrian signal thing since at least 2005, doing a lot of work on his own. You should know he's a Phi Beta Kappa graduate of, I think it's University of Chicago. He is an administrative law judge. He is a very smart and really knows these issues. I don't have time to read you his whole bio, but he's legally blind from birth, president of Metropolitan Council of Citizens with Low Vision. I want you to take a couple minutes to hear from the advocate on this panel, the volunteer advocate, Mr. Ken Stewart.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be a member of this very distinguished panel. Karen's already described to you the PASS Coalition. The history, just very briefly, started just a few blocks from here. It was June of 2004. I was standing on the northwest corner of 23rd Street and 6th Avenue with the head of the Signals Division, Department of Transportation, and a representative from the Commissioner's Transportation Commission of Manhattan there, and we decided that would be the north crosswalk there would be the first recipient of accessible pedestrian signals. And since then, we've been creeping ahead. As the council members mentioned, it's been too slow. It's getting faster. We're very, very pleased with all the wonderful support we're getting nowadays from Councilmember Vaca, Councilmember Brewer, the Mayor's Office, People with Disabilities, Jason Michelle, and many other people. And so we're very optimistic that things are getting better and better for accessible pedestrian signals and for pedestrians generally, with reference to how many seniors there are. Some people call it a senior tsunami, and just more and more people with limited vision, not just necessarily vision impaired, but like if they're looking west late in the day, you know, New Yorkers don't go west, that's Jersey side, looking toward Jersey. But if the sun's setting behind that pedestrian signal, they may not be able to read it, so it's going to help more and more people. Deputy Mayor Steele made reference to the importance of businesses. Sometimes businesses decide to locate in cities that are particularly pedestrian friendly. Tourists sometimes decide to come to a city that's more pedestrian friendly. Councilmember Vaca made reference to the costs of some of these things. There are lots of ways that they can actually be economical. For example, when you're redesigning an intersection, which we're doing an awful lot of nowadays, it's so much cheaper to do it right the first time than have to tear it up and do it right the second time. And even when making modifications, we've been trying to convince the city that if you're going to be changing the intersection signalizing anyway, putting in these fancy new subdivisions of the phases that we all used to be able to predict very well and can't anymore, leading pedestrian signals, left turn, delayed, and so forth. But that's the time to put in the accessible pedestrian signal too. Those little boxes are very cheap. The expenses of labor are going to be newly labor. Do it right with all of the features right away. Another cost saving is getting people to be pedestrians instead of using Accessorize. Accessorize is a wonderful program. just saw statistics recently that there are over 170,000 people now that are approved to use Access-a-Ride. You know how much Access-a-Ride costs each ride? And they provide, again, by the statistics, I saw that over 22,000 rides are provided on a typical weekday. More than $50 that costs the taxpayers. We pay, the user pays $2.25 of that. So it's very expensive. Every time we can fix the streets so it encourages somebody to be a pedestrian instead of using Access-a-Ride, it saves lots of money. And there's lots of other things we're advocating for too. There's reference to pedestrian plazas. They can create new problems for vision impaired people. They're now being receptive to our input on that, so I'm sure we're going to get much smarter about how we design those too. Another concern is countdown signals. In fact, that's what triggered the origin of our PASS coalition. Oh, by the way, PASS is an acronym that Karen Gorgie gets credit for. P-A-S-S, Pedestrians for Accessible and Safe Streets. That was chosen over many other ones, such as citizens requesting accessible streets here. C-A-S-H. Anyway, moving right on. So this concern about the countdown signals, PASS was originated after the mayor mentioned, or there was a press release about how hundreds and hundreds of intersections are going to get countdown signals. Not a word in that whole press release about anything that would help people with vision impairments. So that motivated us. Karen's already mentioned some of the organizations involved with it, and we're getting very good, a seat at the table, which is so helpful, and we're getting lots done on that. One of the things we need to deal with too now are wide cars. There's a big push to get people to use electric vehicles. They're putting in these charging stations all around the city. Silent cars are a major problem for people that depend on hearing the traffic light. You start across the crosswalk at the same time as a vehicle just behind your left shoulder starts crossing. He's going to be turning across your path, and you hesitate, you're not sure that you can't see him. I got hit by a car that way not too long ago. In fact, at the intersection where I requested back at the beginning of 2004 for an accessible pedestrian signal, which started the whole history of accessible pedestrian signals. So there needs to be, and eventually there will be federal requirements for silent vehicles, either hybrids or electric vehicles, to have some sort of audible feature when they're driving slowly. When moving fast, we don't need that because you can hear the rush of the air and the tires on the pavement. When they're driving slowly, which is what they're doing in intersections in New York City and we're in crosswalks, we need to be able to hear them. So that's something that's on our agenda too.
Ken, excuse me, I'm so sorry.
I'm wrapping up. Thank you very much.